We're going to proceed with roll call. So delegates, when the chair calls out your country, please say present in voting. Delegates of Colombia.
Delegate of Colombia is present in voting.
France.
Present in voting.
Recording started.
Germany.
I'm voting.
Guatemala.
I'm voting.
Pakistan.
Delegates, seeing as Chair Nadine has technical issues, we'll proceed onwards with roll call. Delegate of Pakistan, are you present?
Delegates of Portugal.
Present and voting.
Delegates of the Russian Federation.
Present in voting.
Delegates of the United Kingdom.
Present in voting.
Delegates of the United States.
Is present in voting.
Okay, chat moderator, can you please get the resolution onto the screen? We will now commence with ad hoc debate. When you can see the resolution, can you please show a smiley face? If the delegates cannot see the resolution, please show a confused face. Delegates of Pakistan, does the delegate have a point of information to the chair?
Delegates wishing to submit clauses to the resolution, please send your amendments to the amendments moderator, Osama.
Delegates, just to clarify, in order for us to be able to begin debate, one of the delegates must submit a clause to the amendments moderator because this is ad hoc debate. So the chair would like to strongly encourage every delegate to send in an operative clause. Thank you.
Seeing as the chairs are having some technical difficulties, the chair now calls for a 5-minute indoor caucus. Please submit amendments during this time and wait for the amendments moderator to type it out on the typing pad. Thank you.
Delegates, whenever you're done with your clauses, send them to Osama, the amendments moderator, so we can get them up on the pad and start debate 5 minutes later. Thank you.
Okay, delegates, we will now commence. We will now commence with debate. May the delegates of the USA, the submitter of the first operative clause, please take the floor. The chair will set debate time of 5 minutes for and 5 minutes against this clause. So, delegate, can you please read out the operative clause?
Allowing and endorsing freedom of speech in North Korea as it's currently not in place.
Delegate, you now have the floor to make your speech.
Delegates, North Korea is a very closed and self-sustained country, as many of you know. They are somewhat communist and very little is known about them, since all of the information that they have retains to be within the government and not released to the public. They have many shortages, like electricity shortages that the country cannot supply for, and it should just become more of an open country and more like South Korea, which is now developing very rapidly and is becoming an NIC, and maybe in the future even an MEDC.
Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegates of the United Kingdom, followed by the delegates of Guatemala.
Delegate of the USA intend to implement this clause? How will it be enacted?
The delegate has many ways in mind, but did not want to write them down. Instead, rather discuss them and then submit an amendment when it is agreed upon. So the delegate of the United States welcomes the delegate of the United Kingdom to submit any ideas the delegate may have, and the delegate of the United States will obviously take them into consideration and will definitely argue and debate to come up with a reasonable conclusion.
This delegate's point has been answered.
Thank you, delegate. Delegates of the United States, are you open to any more points of information?
The delegate is open to any and all points of information.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegates of the United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
The delegate himself has stated that the DPRK is a very secluded country and is very limiting on what its citizens can say or do. But how would he use this clause to make sure that that is changed? How can Untable clause change all of this that has been going on for the past tens of years?
Delegate, it may seem very unrealistic, but the delegate believes that all of the nations here, one step at a time, could change it, and this could be the goal or the main step, the first baby step of many, if you could put it that way, to endorse freedom of speech and human rights in North Korea and for the citizens themselves. As you can see, Clause 2 also states that to allow other forms of media to enter the country, because all of the media is government owned and they are basically just brainwashing them with propaganda. And destroying all of the concentration camps for people who just literally speak their mind. And the delegate of the United States does not endorse this. And the delegate realizes that this is a very vague clause and it does not have any detail. But the delegate invites the delegate of the United Kingdom, especially since he is so concerned, to send an amendment to Osama and we'll talk about it and debate and come up with a good solution that both of us and the rest of the delegates agree upon.
Delegate, time for this clause has elapsed. Can the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair?
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
We will now move into time against. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor to speak against this clause? Delegate of the United Kingdom, you have the floor.
This delegate is strongly in opposition of this clause. Even though freedom of speech is a fundamental human right, we cannot just take it for granted that by approving this clause that it will happen. Freedom of speech is a stretch. It's a huge stretch. It's almost unrealistic in North Korea, as it is and has been for a long time a very oppressive government. It's a government which controls its people by making them silent, and basically, like what the delegate of the United States has said, they are brainwashing them. We cannot take such a simple measure as approving one clause to change this problem. Therefore, this delegate is in favor of the idea of the clause, but not the clause itself. Thank you.
Thank you, delegates. The delegate is open to any points of information.
Any and all.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegate of the United States, you have been recognized.
Delegate of the United Kingdom does not seem to have understood what I said when what the delegate had said when the delegate had said that this was just one of the mere baby steps, one of the goals. Endorsing and implementing freedom of speech in North Korea would take up many resolutions. However, putting this clause out there promotes the idea of this being there, and hopefully also promotes the chance of there being a resolution on this and putting all of the North Koreans out of their misery.
Please ask the delegate of the United States to rephrase his point of information.
Yes, delegate of the United States, can you please rephrase your point of information?
Doesn't the delegate agree that this is not just a clause that will implement freedom of speech in North Korea? This is just one of the steps and the main goal of having freedom of speech in North Korea, not the actual clause that will ensure freedom of speech in North Korea. For that would take up many resolutions and a lot of time, not just half a line of a clause.
This delegate understands the point of the delegate of the United States, but the simple act of stating the right of freedom of speech is already stated within the Universal Declaration of Independence, and therefore this clause is moot, as it is repeating something that has already been a given, which is the expectation of other countries to ensure that their citizens have freedom of speech.
Request follow-up.
Due to time constraints, denied. Delegate, please yield the floor back to the chair.
So yielded.
Time against this clause has elapsed. We will now move into directly into previous question. All delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please raise your placards high. The chair would just like to point out that any vote against this resolution by a member of the P5 nations will be considered a veto. So, Delegate of the United Kingdom, do you wish to veto this clause?
Yes.
Okay, Delegate, that is in order. Can the Delegate please provide us with a justification as to why the Delegate is vetoing this clause?
The main reason that this delegate is vetoing this clause is that it is directly acting on the DPRK and insists that it change it. And the situation in the Korean Peninsula is very hot, is very tense, and anything that might instigate any violence, such as forcing them to do something, may cause violence, and this delegate is wanting to prevent that.
Delegate, a justification for a veto must follow a country's foreign policy. If the clause does not in any way go against the delegate's foreign policy, then a veto is not in order. So, Delegate, can you please reconsider your veto for just a second? Delegate of the Russian Federation has voted against this resolution. Delegate, can you please rise and justify your veto?
The delegate of the Russian Federation vetoes this clause because it is against Russia's foreign policy to make another country do something that they won't. And as a country, we believe that by saying allowing other forms of media countries to take part, destroying and freeing all concentration camps and captives in these countries, we believe that will lead to military intervention in war, and that is against our foreign policy.
Okay, thank you, Delegate. That is in order. This clause fails because it has been vetoed by the Russian Federation. Delegates, please make the appropriate changes to your resolutions. We will now commence debate on the second clause with 5 minutes for and 5 minutes against this clause. Delegates of the USA, can you proceed with your speech without reading out the operative clause? Thank you. Delegates of the United States, can you please proceed with your speech pertaining to Clause 2?
Point of inquiry towards the chair. Current Clause 1 or current Clause 2?
The chair apologizes. Current Clause 1.
Allowing other forms of media to enter the country apart from governmental radio, television, news, and organizations. The North Korea is currently not allowing any other form of media to influence its country. It's just using the media that the government has set up, as well as the radio and the news and the organizations which are appointed by the government and strictly follow the rules and regulations of the government. And as the delegate of the United States and the United Kingdom has previously stated, this is just another form of brainwashing and propaganda, and the delegate believes it should be eradicated. This is not the way to eradicate the delegate of the United Kingdoms. This is not the final way to eradicate it. This is just a way of raising awareness. And yes, the delegate to the United States is aware it's in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But since North Korea isn't following it, we should continue emphasizing on it until they do. And we shall continue making clauses and resolutions on it until North Korea implements it, because these are, as the delegate of the United Kingdom has stated, universal human rights. It's in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. They are free to watch and listen to whatever they want.
Thank you, delegates. Is delegates open to any points of information?
Delegates open to any and all points of information.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegates of the Russian Federation, followed by the delegates of Portugal.
The delegate of the United States says that other forms of media other than state-run media are not allowed in North Korea. While this is true for 98% of media, it has been noted that the Associated Press has been allowed to come into North Korea. So what does the delegate say to that?
Delegate, there is a difference between outside press going into North Korea and reporting about it back to the United States or other countries, and North Korean press reporting about other countries. For example, the Associated Press did go into the did go into North Korea, and so did many other news stations. However, the Korean people did not get to see these reports. They only see reports that have been set up by the government, which basically make them think in a certain way.
Delegate of Portugal.
Does the delegate believe that this solution will help stop the production of weapons, of nuclear weapons?
May the delegate please repeat what he just said?
Does the delegate believe that this clause will help to stop the production in DPRK, to stop the production of the nuclear weapons?
No. Delegate just endorses other forms of media in the country. Nothing else.
The following delegates. Delegate, time for this clause has elapsed. Can the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair?
Yields the floor back to the chair.
We will now move into the closed debate against this clause. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor to speak against? Seeing as there are none, we will now move directly into previous questions. Delegate of South Africa. Sorry, delegates. All delegates wishing to vote for this clause, please press A. All delegates wishing to vote against, please press B. And all delegates abstaining, please press C.
Point of order.
Point of order.
Delegate, please rise and state your point. Delegate, please state your point.
The DPRK is a non-voting country.
That is in order, Delegate. The DPRK cannot be granted a vote. With 4 votes for, 1 vote against, and 3 abstentions, this clause passes. Clapping is out of order. Delegates of the United States of America, may the delegate please take the floor to speak for operative clause, for clause 2 without reading it out. Delegate, please. The chair sets debate time of 2 minutes for and 2 minutes against this clause. Thank you.
Once again, like the previous clauses I have submitted, this is not the final. This is not the final solution. This is just one of the steps, and especially targeted towards the United Kingdom, who seems to be so upset with this. This is just re-emphasizing, because North Korea, as the delegate of the United Kingdoms may have noted, is not exactly following the human rights of declaration and has concentration camps. The delegate of the United States believes in destroying all of these concentration camps and freeing the people inside it and sending them back to their homes. And the delegate would like to ask all of the delegates here to submit amendments to make it less vague, as well as for clause 1, because personally, the delegate of the United States thinks that clause 1 is good. However, it needs a lot more amending for it to be a legitimate clause. Same thing with clause 2. So please, please, please submit amendments and make it a better clause. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegate of France, followed by the delegate of DPRK.
Does the delegate of USA feel that involvement of NGOs would help the cause mentioned in his clause that to form medias?
Going to personal privilege, the delegate of France, please rephrase what he just said into a more coherent matter.
Delegate, can you please rephrase your question?
Does the delegate of USA not believe that the involvement of NGOs would further help the topic?
I mean, sure, why not? It's always good to have NGOs who can bring in extra money and extra workforce and extra ideas into this situation, so that we can develop it faster, and so that we can come up with a more reasonable, more widely accepted approach within a shorter amount of time and with more funding and more backup.
Himself previously stated that the DPRK is a conservative country. So how does the delegate know that we have concentration camps?
Delegate, when the country is scolding, killing, and torturing thousands of people, word goes around, and it is found all over the internet. I'm sure you could just Google DPRK concentration camp, and you'd have over thousands of search results.
Request a follow-up.
Granted.
How are we so sure that this isn't propaganda from the USA itself, convincing other countries to shun DPRK? Our great leader is very upset at the fact that so many people have fallen and been manipulated by the United States propaganda. You have no sufficient proof. Everything on the internet, you can question it. None of it, you can't, it's not reliable.
Delegate, let me read out a quote here. This is from the Telegraph. This is the United Kingdom-based news station, so it is not US propaganda, and it is very neutral. And it reads out, Shin Dong-hyuk, one of the few known survivors of North Korea's prison camps, traveled to London last week to share his experiences in the Parliament at an event held by Henry Jackson Society. And Shin was actually born into this camp, as it says here, Camp 14. And wow, 14 camps, and he endured 22 years of punishment for the supposed crimes of his parents. It's not even his crimes. So, delegate, that I believe is sufficient proof. It is living evidence, and yeah, there's enough evidence, and it's not just a rumor. There are videos of people being tortured in North Korean concentration camps.
Thank you, Delegate. The Chair would just like to remind the House that the use of person pronouns is not admitted, and the Delegate would like to encourage all delegates to speak in third person. Delegate, please yield the floor back to the Chair.
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair. However, there is a point of information by the delegate of South Africa.
That will be entertained now. Delegates of South Africa, does the delegate have a point of information to the Chair?
I believe that South Africa is one of the most countries that are being tortured by such a criminal act. You know, the weapons that are being used nowadays in South Africa and in many countries.
Making that this is out of order. If the delegate would like to make a statement, then the delegate should request to have the floor or ask a point of information. So delegates, the floor is once again open for any speakers wishing to vote against this, to talk against this clause. Are there any delegates wishing to take the floor? Delegates of Guatemala.
Honorable chairs and esteemed delegates, the delegate of Guatemala is strongly in favor of the intent behind this clause. However, he has two main concerns with the implementation of this clause. Firstly, he is concerned about the military aspect of this clause. He feels that such a clause can only be implemented with military force, and he questions how this military force will be achieved in such a way. He feels that the unstable regime in the DPRK and their great weapons of mass destruction arsenal could prove to be a dangerous weapon globally if a war was to arise with the DPRK. Therefore, he feels that military intervention in the DPRK should be a last resort, and therefore questions this clause. His second concern with this clause is the fact that is the idea of freeing prisoners. Granted, he understands that many of the prisoners held in concentration camps are held because of arbitrary violations of their ancestors or arbitrary violations of themselves. However, he also knows that there are some prisoners in these concentration camps that are guilty of heinous crimes such as murder and rape. And he does not believe that these criminals should be released under any circumstances, even if it is for the greater good of releasing some prisoners who may be innocent. Therefore, this delegate urges all other delegates to vote against this clause, as he feels that the military aspect of this clause, as well as the idea of releasing guilty prisoners, would be detrimental to the world as a whole and to the stability and security of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
This delegate is open to any and all points of information.
Are there any such points in the House? Delegates of the United States, you have been recognized.
First off, I would like to say, Delegate, I'm sorry that you feel that way. And second of all, there is no mention in this entire clause of any military intervention. The Delegate of the United States was very careful when writing this to not do that specifically, for he does not want to go into another war. And with you speculating that and basing all of the information that you have on that, I would like the delegate would like to point out that your speech has very little basis. Apart from the rapist / murderer thing, yeah, those people are usually killed off, and when they aren't, they are put in these concentration camps, and obviously we are going to filter them through.
Delegate of the United States, can you please ask your point of information in the form of one concise question only? Thank you.
And we will not be freeing the rapists and murderers. We will be keeping them in normal prisons, not concentration camps.
This delegate apologizes for his misunderstanding of this clause. He feels that if some amendments were added to this clause to clarify the intent behind the clause, it could become a much stronger clause, and this delegate would therefore would vote for this clause.
Thank you, Delegate. Delegate, due to time constraints, please yield the floor back to the Chair.
So yielded.
The Chair would like to pass the mic to the fellow Chair, Stephen.
That is in order. All right. Are there any delegates in the House that wish to speak on the resolution? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of the United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
This delegate has submitted an amendment.
That is in order. Okay. Which clause would the delegate address?
Point of inquiry towards the Chair.
Delegate, rise and state your point.
We did not go into voting procedures on my second clause.
The Chair stands corrected. My apologies, delegates. We will now move to voting procedures on the second clause of the resolution. Would delegates please vote yes or no for clause 2? Delegates of the Russian Federation and the United Kingdom, are you calling a veto?
Yes, this delegate is calling a veto.
May the delegate justify why the delegate of the United Kingdom is calling this veto?
The main reason that this delegate is calling this veto is that by implying that there are concentration camps and destroying them, that there's a somewhat hostile move on the government of the DPRK. Therefore, if this statement is made and they feel somewhat insulted about it, it may cause even further strife, as it is basically accusing them of having concentration camps right off the bat, rather than behind stating a firm research point or anything such as that.
Delegate of Russia, what is your justification to veto this clause?
This delegate's justification is around the same justification as the UK just pointed out. Furthermore, the delegate of Russia believes that calling upon the destruction and freeing of all concentration camps is more or less calling for foreign intervention to destroy these concentration camps.
Delegates, there have been 2 vetoes called upon the clause. However, these vetoes are not strictly following a nation's foreign policy. Therefore, they will not be in order. May delegates of UK and Russia please change your voting stance. With the vote of 3-4, 2 against, and 3 abstain, this resolution, this amendment does not pass. Clapping is not in order.
Motion to divide the House.
That is not in order, delegate. Due to time constraints. The floor is now once again open to any delegates wishing to speak on the resolution. Are there any delegates in the House wishing to speak on the resolution? Please raise your placards high now. Okay. The delegate of France, you have been recognized.
The delegate has put forward an amendment. Can it be entertained?
That is in order. The amendment reads, adding clause 3 draws the attention to recent tests of long-range missile technology which could possibly be armed with nuclear warheads to be immediately seized. Delegate, please read out your opening speech.
Greetings, Honorable Chair and fellow delegates. The Republic of North Korea has long been an internationally disconnected and somewhat remote nation. The volatile situation of its current weapons and armament program is not to be taken lightly. They have been conducting experiments and live tests since 2009, at times in open and at times in secret. They have been rapidly advancing in ways which have made them one of the top threats to the rest of the world. They continue to resist UN nuclear watchdog interference and make themselves more and more isolated. We do not even know what their ulterior motives may be. Their long-range ballistic missiles, which have been undergoing discrete testing, impose a superior threat to every sovereign nation present within 5,000 square kilometers of the missile's firing point. This clause provides direct action towards the potentially devastating effects DPRK's unknown motives and weaponry may have upon our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Yes, 2.
The delegate has opened himself to 2 points of information. Are there any in the House at this time? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of the United States of America, you have been recognized.
Delegate, why does the delegate believe this is such an important clause?
Thank you for your point, Delegate of USA. The Delegate of France believes that this is a vital and very important point, as it is a hot topic and it is something that we must take action on immediately, as these rockets are these ballistic missiles are already ready to be fired, and they could potentially have devastating effects and very violent consequences upon every nation out there.
Or delegates wishing to give a point of information to the Delegate of France? Seeing as there are no more delegates wishing to provide points of information to the delegate of France, would the delegate of France please yield the floor back to the chair?
Yes, the delegate of France yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. The chair stands corrected and sets a closed debate time of 3 minutes for and 3 minutes against this amendment to the first degree. The floor is now once again open. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for the amendment at this time? Delegate of the United States of America, you have been recognized, or are you calling that off? And if that is the case, delegate of Portugal, you have been recognized to speak. Delegate of Portugal, you have been recognized. Delegate of Portugal, you've been recognized to speak. Due to technical difficulties, the delegate of Portugal will not be speaking anymore. The chair now recognizes the delegate of the United States of America.
The delegate is completely with this clause, for the delegate believes that it is with his foreign policy to intervene with any country that has nuclear warheads, and recently its foreign policy changed to a way that is not military intervention, delegate of the UK or Russia, and therefore the delegate fully supports and fully believes in this clause, and amends the delegate of France for writing such a beautifully written clause.
Is the delegate open to any points of information?
The delegate is open to any and all points of information.
The delegate of USA is open himself to any and all points of information. However, due to time constraints, the chair will only entertain 2. Are there any in the House at the time? Please raise your placard high. The delegate of Guatemala, you have been recognized.
Does the delegate of the USA not feel that it is contradictory that the U.S. wants to intervene in any nation with nuclear warheads, given that the United States has still not fulfilled its duty in the Non-Proliferation Treaty in disarming its own nuclear weapons program?
Delegate, the United Kingdom, the United States, Russia, France, and the P5 nations are allowed to have an amount of nuclear warheads, and the amount of nuclear warheads in the United States is indefinite, and any number that the delegate of Colombia may have obtained are just rumored.
Thank you, delegate. Would the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. That is in order. The floor is now once again open. Would any delegates like to speak for the amendment? Seeing as there are none, we will now move to time against the amendment. Any delegates wishing to speak against the amendment, please raise your placards high. Delegate of the United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
The delegate has submitted an amendment to the second degree.
The chair is checking with the amendment moderator right now. The amendment moderator is not aware of this amendment to the second degree. Would the delegate of the United Kingdom please resend the amendment moderator the correct amendment?
We'll be sure to do so.
Are there any delegates in the House wishing to speak against the amendment before the delegate of the United Kingdom is done editing his amendment? Delegate of France, you have been recognized.
Point of information to the chair.
Delegate, rise and state your point.
Motion to move to previous question.
That is not in order due to the fact that the delegate of the United Kingdom is currently rewording an amendment to the second degree to submit. The United Kingdom, your amendment is not, the way your amendment is worded is not clear. May you please restate this amendment in a clear form to the amendments moderator? Thank you.
So I would like to retract his amendment and instead speak against this amendment.
Delegate, that is in order. You now have the floor.
This delegate has originally intended to to rephrase the current amendment being debated, which is Amendment 3 on the Clause 3 on the screen, as it is a bit unclear to what its aims are and a bit vague. However, since this delegate's amendment to the second degree is not seeming to be recognized, this delegate would be forced to abstain.
Thank you, delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Thank you. The delegate of the United Kingdom has opened himself to any and all points of information. However, due to time constraints, the chair will only entertain 2. Are there any in the House at this time? Please raise your placard high. The delegate of the United States of America, you have been recognized.
Is the delegate speaking against this clause when he submitted an amendment? So the delegate was intending to speak against his amendment in the first place.
I'd like to highlight that amendments to the second degree are supposed to be submitted during time against the amendment.
May the delegate please repeat that?
Yes, this delegate understands what the delegate of the USA is stating, that why did this delegate choose to submit an amendment during time against and speak against. That is because to the extent of this delegate's knowledge, amendments to the second degree can only be submitted during time against the amendment to the first degree.
Would the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
This delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Due to time constraints, we will now be proceeding directly to voting procedures. All delegates wishing to vote for this amendment, press A. Voting against, press B. And abstaining, press C. With a vote of 5 for, 1 against, and 4 abstains, this amendment passes. Clapping is not in order. The floor is once again open. If any delegates wish to speak on the resolution, please raise your placards high. Delegate of Guatemala, you have been recognized.
This delegate has submitted an amendment.
That is in order. The amendment reads, demands that the DPRK disarms its nuclear and weapons of mass destruction arsenal within a 1-year period, with consequences of its failure to do so including, but not being limited to, A. A trade embargo to be followed by all UN member states on the nation preventing the trade of items to the nation including, but not limited to, I, subclause I, materials to assist in energy production, subclause II, subclause II, mining equipment and technology, subclause B, seizing humanitarian aid to the nation by all UN member states, and subclause C, withdrawing the DPRK from the UN. The chair sets closed debate time of 4 minutes for and 4 minutes against this amendment to the first degree. Delegate, you now have the floor.
Honorable chairs and esteemed delegates. In the past, punishments applied to the DPRK in response to militarization and development of weapons of mass destruction in violation of international law failed due to lack of unity in the international community. The essence of this clause is to promote unity among the international community. International support among member nations will strengthen the consequences imposed on the DPRK. This clause seeks to give the DPRK a reasonable time frame to disarm its nuclear arsenal and WMD arsenal, as this arsenal has been a constant threat to stability in the region. These subclauses provide effective deterrence to the DPRK to denuclearize. Subclause A would damage the economy by hampering the DPRK's 2 biggest economic sectors, namely energy production and mining. Subclause B would create political pressure on the regime, as without humanitarian aid, the famine currently in the DPRK will be exacerbated and public outcry over the famine will escalate. Subclause C, as the final attempt as a final deterrent in case the DPRK does not respond to the first 2, will remove the DPRK's diplomatic power in the UN. This delegate believes that the efficient deterrence in this clause will help the international community to reach its goal of disarming the DPRK's weapons of mass destruction arsenal, thereby increasing global security and stability. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
Delegates, please be reminded to raise your placards after the chair asks you to. The delegate of Guatemala has opened himself to any and all points of information. Are there any in the House at this time? The chair will recognize 3. Delegates of China, United States of America, and Azerbaijan, in that order, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Is the delegate not aware that by withdrawing the DPRK from the United Nations, you're going against the United Nations itself, as DPRK is a recognized nation by member states and has not been decolonized or annexed into another nation. Thank you.
This delegate believes that the DPRK could in fact lose its status as a member nation if it were to violate international law as it has been doing in the past. And this delegate wishes to give the DPRK a second chance to finally disarm, and he believes that if the DPRK does not do so and continues to violate international law, it deserves punishment, and he would once again like to reaffirm that this would be the last subclause and the last resort if the DPRK does not respond to the first two measures.
The next delegate speak up and state your point of information.
The delegate of France would like to retract point of information as it's already been asked by another delegate.
All right. Would the next delegate then please rise and state your point of information?
The delegate believes that this cannot be achieved without military intervention, and since the United States does not want military intervention at this point in time, the delegate of the United States would have to use his veto along with China and the Russian Federation if they were to follow their foreign policies correctly.
Actually, this delegate believes that military intervention would not be necessary. He feels that diplomatic pressure could ease the measures in this clause. He feels that all of these measures could be taken with diplomatic pressure as opposed to military intervention.
Request following.
Delegates. Would the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
This delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
Thank you. We are now moving into time for the amendment. Are there any delegates in the House wishing to speak for the amendment? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of the United Kingdom, you have been recognized.
A friendly amendment.
That will not be debated on. Amendments moderator, can you please check on that? The amendment moderator has told me that that's already been done, so that's in order then. Are any more delegates wishing to speak for this amendment at this time? The delegate of the United Kingdom, you now have the floor.
This delegate is strongly in favor of this clause as it is aiming to preserve the political stability within the Korean Peninsula. The current strife is caused by the test of the supposed weather satellite by the DPRK, and this has caused concerns by the neighboring countries such as China, South Korea, and Japan. By launching this weather satellite, the DPRK has also gone against the previous resolutions, which this delegate cannot name. However, this clause is merely reaffirming and making sure that the delegate, that the DPRK follows. Originally, it was phrased as demands, but this delegate has submitted a friendly amendment to change demands to express its hope, as the only times where demands can be used is when it is legally binding, which if this delegate is not if this delegate is not mistaken, is when the situation falls under Chapter 7 of the Charter, which states that intervention is needed for the preservation of safety and peace, where this situation has not escalated at that point yet. Thank you.
Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
Any and all.
The delegate has opened himself to any and all points of information. However, due to time constraints, the chair will only entertain 2. Are there any delegates wishing to speak at this time? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of the United States of America and Azerbaijan, in that order, you have been recognized.
The delegate of the United Kingdom is contradicting himself, for as he tried to veto my first 2 clauses by stating that they were only emphasizing and not doing anything. Now the delegate submits an amendment which does the exact same thing, and adding to that, the subclause C says withdrawing the DPRK from the UN. The delegate does not believe that is a reasonable option. We cannot just withdraw the DPRK from the United Nations for doing something wrong. We have to set them straight and continue talking with them, or else they will go rogue, and they have a lot of nuclear weapons.
Please ask the delegate to rephrase his POI in the form of a question.
Wouldn't the delegate agree that the delegate is contradicting himself by saying that this clause only re-emphasizes, whereas he tried to veto my previous 2 clauses because they did that exact same thing, and subclause C is saying that it should withdraw DPRK from the UN? That is completely irrational, and if we were to do that, they would go rogue, since the only thing really holding them in place is political pressure, and that mainly comes in through the United Nations.
Delegate would like to disagree to the delegate of the USA's point where this delegate is contradicting himself. This delegate believes that this clause is a separate entity compared to the delegate of the USA's original clauses, as this clause being debated is relevant to the current situation and is in fact based on previous resolutions, such as resolutions 1985, 1874, and 1718, which have condemned the nuclear and ballistic missile tests by the DPRK, and therefore this delegate believes that passive action, not active action, such as military intervention should be used.
That is in order.
Delegate, as the delegate has previously corrected you, the delegate of the United States nowhere in any of his clauses mentioned or even touched upon military intervention, and in fact the delegate of the United States would not like to introduce military intervention into these specific places. Therefore, delegate, please get your facts straight, and there have been previous resolutions on the human rights situation in DPRK, and as well as them not following the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is way stronger than any resolution that could ever be passed in the UN.
The chair please ask the delegate to rephrase his POI.
In order, may the delegate of the United States of America please rephrase his point of information in the form of a question.
Doesn't the delegate agree?
Delegate, answer the delegate of the United States of America's POI.
Delegate does not agree that he contradicted himself.
Delegate of Azerbaijan, please state your point of information.
Would the delegate not realize that trying to withdraw the DPRK from the United Nations would almost certainly force the DPRK to go into a rogue state, by which they would more than likely fire missiles against member states, especially the ones in the Security Council that were a part of removing it from the United Nations, as we are now debating?
Delegate does not believe that is what would happen, and this delegate would also like to emphasize that merely removing the DPRK from the UN does not remove all political pressure, as political pressure is not limited to the UN. It can be also pressure from international relations from other countries. Simply by removing a country from the UN does not state that it is not a country anymore. It's just that it is not recognized and cannot use any of the UN's facilities, such as the ICJ, ICC, or receive aid, if this delegate is not mistaken.
Point of information?
Your point of information?
Request a follow-up.
Is in order.
Although removing a country or state from the United Nations does not stop it from being a country, it is still an extremely harsh punishment. And removing the DPRK from the United Nations would more than likely punish the people of the DPRK, as if they cannot receive aid when it is necessary, they will almost certainly die. This is not something that the UN is working towards. It is working towards world peace, not world chaos.
This delegate believes that if no action is taken to curb the DPRK's armament, that it will in fact lead to world chaos, as the delegate of Azerbaijan has stated. Therefore, this delegate would like to have some form of action taken on the DPRK to ensure that it disarms.
Thank you, delegates. Would the delegate yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
This delegate yields the floor back to the chair.
That is in order. Time for this amendment has now elapsed. We will now move to time against this amendment. Are there any delegates in the House wishing to speak against this amendment? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of China, you have been recognized.
Thank you, Honorable Chairs. Delegates, let's look at this amendment. First off, why should DPRK disarm themselves? They are their own country. They deserve their own weapons, their own army, their own arsenal. China also, however, agrees that in light of recent events since World War II, that we should control nuclear advancements in weapons. However, we shouldn't demand that they disarm. We should encourage them to disarm through political dialogue, through the talks with the United Nations Security Council and the DPRK. Okay? Following which, a trade embargo. What will a trade embargo do? China enjoys close friendly ties with DPRK. Thus, China is in a position to say that DPRK cannot survive an embargo by the UN member states. So by doing so, delegates, make sure that you're doing the right decision, because if you do this, you will be destroying DPRK, not its leadership, but its people. And people are the most important people within a nation, not the leaders. Furthermore, clause B, why are we seizing humanitarian aid? They need aid. We may hate their leaders, but their people need our help. Withdrawing the DPRK from the UN. Why are we withdrawing the DPRK from the UN? This is against the UN Charter. By doing so, we're saying that DPRK is no longer a nation. And by being no longer a nation, they're outside of the UN, whereby they can operate with full immunity from the international community. Thereby, we will have no control over and no insight into what DPRK is doing. Thus, ladies and gentlemen, please vote against this amendment in order to help improve DPRK. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate. Is the delegate open to any points of information?
This delegate is open to any and all.
The delegate of China has opened himself to any and all points of information. The chair will entertain 3. Are there any in the House at this time? Please raise your placards high. Delegate of France and Guatemala, in that order, you have been recognized. And DPRK. You have been recognized in that order.
Does the delegate not feel that such rash action is needed, because the North Korea continuously refuses to come to the table and talk about its issues, and they have long been given deadlines to follow, but have not attended to them, and they continuously keep rejecting UN nuclear watchdog intervention to their weapon programs?
This delegate disagrees. In case the delegate of France is not aware, there recently was a change of power within the DPRK itself. Whilst the recent events in DPRK have shown that the new leader is trying to assert his strength within the leading party of DPRK, China still firmly believes that DPRK and its new leader will come to the table eventually in the next year or so and engage in dialogue and agreements with the international community. Thus, this delegate does not believe that we must take rash actions against DPRK. Thank you.
Request for follow-up.
In order, delegate, please state your follow-up.
Again, as the delegate just stated, 1 year may be a too long time, and by that time North Korea may have their weapons program up and running completely 100% and be able to attack any sovereign nation, the sovereignty of any nation on our planet. And also France is aware of leadership change and is also aware that the new leader is a direct descendant of the old one, and he may choose to, and he will probably continue to choose the same foreign policies as his predecessor.
So the delegate is saying that an apple never falls far from its tree. Right. The delegate of China disagrees with that again. The delegate of China believes that no matter what, political dialogue, intergovernmental dialogue between nations and parties within the UN is important to ensuring that DPRK returns or comes to a better state than it is now, rather than doing rash actions such as, I quote, a trade embargo or seizing humanitarian aid. Thank you.
Delegate not agree that by implementing this clause, the situation may worsen in DPRK and that it is better all member states vote against it.
The delegate agrees with DPRK in that if this clause does pass, it will in fact worsen the situation in DPRK and not improve it. Thank you.
Does the delegate of China realize that subclause C, the previous subclause C that he had criticized in his speech, has been removed in a friendly amendment?
thank you for informing me. The delegate stands corrected. Thank you very much. But still thinks that this clause deserves to be voted against. Thank you.
Has been a motion to increase points of information by 1 from the delegate of the United Kingdom. Therefore, delegate of the United Kingdom, you have been recognized. Rise and state your point of information.
The delegate of China has stated that the only way to put forth the disarmament of the DPRK is through the resumption of talks. However, does the delegate not realize that 6-party talks between the DPRK, the United States, China, South Korea, and Japan and Russia have not been resumed since it has been discontinued in 2009?
The delegate is aware of that, but ladies and gentlemen, this is an international community. We are different people from different races, different cultures, and different backgrounds, different beliefs. Thus, it takes time for people to come to the fold. China believes that DPRK will eventually return to these talks, and in the meantime is doing its utmost to encourage DPRK to actually return to these talks. Thus, this delegate firmly believes that talks are still the key to the question of DPRK. Thank you.
Delegates would the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
This delegate yields the floor to the chairs.
Thank you. Time against this amendment has elapsed. We will now move directly to voting procedures. Delegates wishing to vote for the amendment, press A. Vote against the amendment, press B. And abstaining is pressing C. Delegates of France and Russia, the Russian Federation, are you two calling a veto?
Yes, the delegate of France is calling a veto as this clause strongly goes against the foreign policies and vision of the French government, as we believe that humanitarian aid is a right to every refugee or every refugee in another country, and we shall continue giving aid to any UN member states.
Russia?
The Russian reason for this veto is pretty much the same as the French reason.
That is in order. Clause 2, submitted by Guatemala, has been vetoed. Make appropriate changes to the resolution. The floor is now once again open. Are there any delegates wishing to speak on the resolution as a whole? Please raise your placards high now. Delegate of DPRK, you have been recognized.
Fellow delegates, our great leader Kim Jong-un is greatly saddened that so many delegates seated here today have been indoctrinated by the United States propaganda. Is it not clear that the United States has exploited everyone's passion to tackle this issue and unnecessarily channel this against the DPRK? Friends, DPRK is not here to cause any disagreements. The delegate is here with the same aims as everyone else, and wishes to point out that we should all consider the delegate's point of view, as the delegate has first-hand insight on what the government would prefer. And the delegate would like to remind everyone that DPRK does not welcome any military action or any form of violence at all? Thank you.
Are you open to any points of information?
Any pertaining to her speech?
The delegate has opened herself to any points of information pertaining to her speech. Are there any now at this time? Please raise your placards high. Delegates of France, Azerbaijan, and China in that order, you have been recognized.
The delegate of France would like to commend DPRK on her speech. Does she not see that we're not trying to, we as a committee are not trying to go against and be biased towards other countries, to countries other than DPRK, and the USA is not, trying to change or influx our minds against DPRK, but we're trying to be moderate to both sides and see and seek out the greater good that can come from this resolution.
The delegate would like to think so. However, the First Amendment submitted by the United States is based on rumors and speculation. This entire resolution, although we have not debated all the amendments, is all built on speculation. How do you know that the DPRK has any concentration camps at all? If, let's say, we allowed other countries in to investigate and they found that there were none at all, would this resolution not then be a waste?
The delegate of DPRK previously stated that they would not welcome any military action. If military action were to take place, would DPRK reply with more military action?
As the delegate feels that it is every country's right to defend their country from outer military forces.
Does the delegate not agree that this resolution forces DPRK into an impossible position, as each clause will impact DPRK negatively and result in its returning to its worst position in history?
Yes, the delegate wholeheartedly agrees and dislikes the negative light being shone on DPRK.
You delegate. Would the delegate please yield the floor back to the chair or to another delegate?
The delegate would like to yield the floor back to the chair.
That is in order. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we will now have to proceed directly to voting procedures on the resolution as a whole. May the amendments moderator make the appropriate changes and only keep resolutions that have clauses that have passed on the resolution. Now, may delegates voting for, against, and abstaining vote with A, B's, and C's on the resolution as a whole. Delegates of China and the Russian Federation, along with the United Kingdom. Are all three of you calling vetoes? May you state justification as to why?
The delegate of China is vetoing this resolution as it disrespects DPRK's rights and freedoms as a nation. Thank you.
Russian Federation, United Kingdom.
The Russian Federation is vetoing this resolution for the exact same reason.
The delegate of the United Kingdom is vetoing this resolution as it infringes upon the sovereignty of the DPRK, as it is seizing the nuclear arms rather than discouraging the use.
Vetoes have been placed against this resolution as a whole. As such, this resolution has been vetoed and does not pass. Clapping is not in order. Delegates, I'm sorry that we've run out of time. I know we have like 10 clauses left to debate, and Security Council is really debate heavy, but now that the debate is over, there will be a debriefing session for the mods, I believe, but I'll leave that to Ms. Martins to announce. Yeah, thank you everyone for showing up. I'm sorry we've only gotten one clause passed. Hope we're more constructive next time. Thank you.